Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Julie and I have 5 children, and I have gotten a lot of questions on why we named our kids what we named them. Honestly, I keep putting it off because I think there's not much of a story. For the most part, we just picked our kids' names because we looked them up in a baby book and we liked them. But I will go into a little more detail on how we picked our babies' names. I expect this to be a very quick video, but here we go. Our kids are the pattern boy, girl, boy, girl, boy. And for each of them, the names we picked before they were born, because they were all surprise genders. The boy and girl's name we picked, if we had a boy, we used that girl's name for our next child, and then so on and so forth, if that makes sense. We always kept that name for the next child. So our first is Elijah Cole. And we had picked both our first boy's name and our first girl's name, I think before we even got pregnant, or at least very early on in the pregnancy, we had our boys and girl's name picked. So Elijah Cole, I've always just thought Elijah is such a strong name, and I picked that one really early on. I will say, I feel like almost all of our kids' names I picked, and yes, I ran them past my husband and he agreed, and I just kept running names past him until he agreed on one. But I was the one who mostly looked in the baby books and picked names out and then just ran them past him, and then we eventually agreed on a name. But Elijah we thought was a really strong name. I wanted to choose just a single syllable middle name to go with Elijah, and so we basically just looked through baby books looking for one syllable names that we liked, and we found the name Cole, and we thought Elijah Cole sounded really good together, and that's how he got his name. Our first daughter is named Charity Grace, and same thing really, it's a name that I thought sounded really pretty for a girl, Charity, and I love the name Grace as a middle name. I know it's quite common as a middle name, but I thought it just sounded really good with the name Charity, and that's how the name Charity Grace came about. After we had named our first boy and our first girl, name picking got a bit harder. I felt like it was easy to pick our favorite boy's name, our favorite girl's name, but then when we had to pick like our next favorite name, I found that a lot more difficult, so it took us a little bit longer to come up with our third child's name, Simeon Earl. I think I was just looking through baby name books, just going over and over all these different boys' names, and I really liked the name Simeon. I think that it is a fairly uncommon name. If you read the Bible, I think a lot of people, if they know about Bible characters, they know the name Simeon, but it's very unpopular name as far as most people go, and a lot of people will call him either Simon or Simone. I didn't realize how uncommon his name was until after he was born, and nobody can pronounce it. But we really liked the name Simeon, and the character Simeon in the Bible was waiting for the Lord to come, and we just thought that it was a really nice, strong sounding name. And then we picked the middle name Earl. This was the first name we chose that actually was after somebody, and we had a really good mentor friend, a preacher who was named Earl, and he was really close to my husband and I, and just real encouragement to us. So we wanted to use that name to name after him. And then he actually ended up dying just a couple of years after Simeon was born, and so we were really glad that we had chosen his name as Simeon's middle name. So that's how we came up with Simeon Earl. And then our fourth child's name is Zara Noel. And again, I just poured through baby books just looking for a girl's name that we really liked. I wanted it to sound different than the names of our other kids, but be a really pretty name. And I came across the name Zara, and I don't know anybody with that name, but I just loved the sound of it. I love how simple it is. I love the letter Z as the start of a name. It's just so uncommon, but I thought it just had a really pretty name to it, a simple name, yet uncommon. And so my husband and I talked about that one a lot. We were going back and forth between a few different names, and we came across Zara, and we thought, yeah, that one is gonna be the name. Then it took us a long time to come up with a middle name for Zara, simply because the way Zara sounds, I wanted a second name that was also 2 syllables, but had the emphasis on the second syllable. I know I am super picky about names. I don't know if everybody else is that picky about like syllables and where the accents are and stuff, but I thought it would be really nice to have her name Zara for the emphasis on the second syllable for her middle name. And so I honestly was Googling like 2-syllable names with an emphasis on the second syllable. And so I found a few names that would go with it. I also didn't want a middle name. You guys are gonna think I sound crazy with how particular I am, but I didn't want a middle name that started with a vowel, like Zara something. I wanted a consonant again for the middle name. And I've always thought that Noelle was a really, really pretty name. And when we put Zara Noelle together, I thought that just sounded perfect together. Of course, my husband is in on this too. I'm talking like it's just me picking the names, but we both really, really liked the sound of Zara Noelle. So that's how she got her name. Then for our 5th child, our little boy, his name is Wesley Calvin. And he actually is named after 2 different people. My husband's grandparents, actually, his 2 grandfathers. One has the name Wesley and one has the name Calvin. And so we thought that those names sounded really good together. We went back and forth a bit because if Zara was a girl, she was going to be Wesley Clark. And I liked the sound of that, but we kept coming back to the name Calvin and wanted to use that. And so this, I will say, this is the first name that I think my husband totally picked on his own. Like I said, usually I was the one picking and just kind of running them past him, but he really kept coming back to the name Wesley. And I would find other names and be like, what about this boy's name? But he really wanted Wesley. And of course I was good with it too, but it was the first name that he really picked. And so Wesley Calvin. I will say, I don't think I've ever shared this with you guys, but if Wesley was a girl, his name was going to be Brinley Aspen. And it makes me so sad to not use a name. Every time my husband and I are coming near the birth of one of our babies, it's like, I wonder which name we're going to pick, because we pick the 2 names, whether it's a boy or a girl. And we're always like, oh, but it's going to be so sad to not use one of these names, because we get so attached to the names that we're going to pick. So it makes me sad to not use the name Brinley Aspen. But how we came up with that, I'll quickly share that. For a lot of our kids, when we were picking names, I really liked the name Brooklyn and I really liked the name Brielle, but both of those names, they're just so popular and I wanted to use something a little bit less popular. And so again, my crazy detailed Google searching for names, I loved the name Brooklyn and especially Brielle, and I thought I really love a girl's name starting with BR. And so I honestly Googled girl's name starting with BR and I went through list, I still remember it, laying in bed and looking through like list after list after list, like every possible name starting with BR, and I came across Brinley and I thought that is perfect. And I liked the name Bryn, but I wanted to use a name that was more than just Bryn, and so I thought Brinley was perfect, and then Aspen just went well with it. Anyways, I don't expect us to ever use that name, but that would have been Wesley's name had he been a girl. So that's it. Simple stories, but that is how we came up with our children's names. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll see you guys in my next video.